Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive deep and look under the hood at the very engine that powers every single living thing, from the tiniest microbe all the way up to you and me. We're talking about the absolute fundamentals of what it means to be alive.
So let me ask you a question, and it sounds kind of like a riddle, but it's not. What is the real difference between a rock and a rabbit? I mean, a rock can just sit there for millions of years, no problem, but a rabbit, even when it's totally still, is doing an unbelievable amount of work just to stay alive. So what is that work?
And that work is exactly what we call life processes. These are the non-stop, absolutely essential jobs an organism's body is doing 24/7 just to keep the lights on. This right here is the fundamental difference between something that's living and something that's not.
So here's our game plan. We're going to follow a four-part journey. First, we'll see how living things fuel up. That's nutrition. Then we'll figure out how they actually unlock that energy, which is respiration. After that, we'll explore the body's incredible delivery service, or transportation. And finally, we'll see how they take out the trash with excretion.
Okay, first stop, nutrition. This is all about getting those raw materials, the fuel that every single living system needs to run. But, not everyone gets their fuel from the same gas station, so to speak.
So really, there are two main strategies for getting food. You've got your self-feeders, the autotrophs like plants. You can think of them as the master chefs of the world, whipping up their own meals from just sunlight, air, and water. And then you have us, the heterotrophs. We're the ones who have to eat other organisms to get our energy.
And this right here, this is the incredible, world-changing recipe for photosynthesis. Look at the ingredients on the left. Some carbon dioxide from the air, a little water from the soil, and a bunch of sunlight. And the result on the right? Glucose, the sugar that literally powers almost all life on Earth. And, as a bonus, all the oxygen that we breathe. It's probably the most important chemical reaction on the planet. For real. So, how do plants actually get those ingredients? Well, they use these tiny little pores on their leaves called stomata. You can think of them like millions of microscopic mouths, breathing in the carbon dioxide they need and breathing out the oxygen we need. It's a pretty amazing system. Now, for us heterotrophs, the journey's a bit different. It all starts in the mouth, where our spit actually starts breaking down carbs. Then the food gets pushed down the esophagus into the stomach, which is basically a bag of acid and enzymes that goes to work on proteins. From there, it moves to the small intestine. This is the main event, where pretty much all digestion and absorption happens. And finally, the large intestine takes care of absorbing leftover water and getting the waste ready to leave.
Now here's a hot tip for you. Food doesn't just, fall down your throat because of gravity. It's actively pushed down by these waves of muscle contractions. The key word for that, the one you've got to remember, is peristalsis.
And let's clear up a super common mistake. Your liver makes something called bile, but bile itself doesn't have any enzymes to digest fat. What it does is act kind of like dish soap. It takes big globs of fat and breaks them into tiny little droplets. That just gives the real fat-digesting enzymes, which come from the pancreas, a much bigger surface to attack. So bile gets the fat ready, but other stuff does the actual work.
All right, so we've got the fuel, now what? How do we actually get the power out of it? Well, that brings us to our second big process, respiration. And just to be clear, this isn't just about breathing in and out. This is the chemical magic that happens inside our cells to crack open our food and release that precious energy. Our cells have two main options for this. The first, and by far the best, is aerobic respiration. It uses oxygen to completely break down glucose and squeezes out a ton of energy. We're talking about 38 units of energy, or ATP. But when oxygen is running low, cells can switch to anaerobic respiration. It's a quick fix, but man, it isn't efficient. It only gives you like 2 ATP. And here's where you've actually felt this. You ever been in a really tough workout and your muscles start to burn and cramp up? That's it. That's your muscle cells running out of oxygen and switching to anaerobic respiration to keep you going. That burn you feel? That's a byproduct called lactic acid building up.
So we've gotten the fuel and we've unlocked its energy. But that energy is useless if it's just stuck in one place, right? We need to get that energy, plus oxygen and all the other good stuff, to trillions of cells all over the body. So let's move on to our third process, the body's amazing delivery network, transportation.
And the engine of this whole network is, of course, the heart. It's such a brilliant design. It's a double pump. One side pumps blood over to the lungs to grab some oxygen. At the exact same time, the other side is pumping that fresh, oxygen-rich blood out to the rest of the body. It's an incredibly efficient system.
Now, this blood travels through a whole network of highways. You've got arteries, which carry blood away from the heart. They need thick, strong walls to handle all that pressure. Then you have veins, which bring blood back towards the heart. They have little valves inside to make sure the blood doesn't flow backward. Oh, and watch out for the exceptions. The pulmonary artery and vein do the exact opposite of what you'd expect.
Plants have their own kind of plumbing, too. There's the xylem, which is basically a set of drinking straws that pulls water and minerals up from the roots to the leaves. It's a one-way street, and it doesn't even take any energy. Then you have the phloem, which is a much more active system. It transports the food, the sugar made in the leaves, to every other part of the plant that needs it, both up and down. And that delivery job actually costs the plant some energy.
So here's a super easy way to lock this in your brain. Xylem is for water, one way up. Phloem is for food, two-way traffic all around. Simple, right? But so important.
Okay, we are on the final leg of the journey. We've fueled up, we've made energy, we've delivered it. So what's left? Well, every process creates waste. Our final life process, excretion, is the critical job of taking out all that metabolic trash before it builds up and becomes toxic.
And in humans, the undisputed champions of cleanup are the kidneys. They clean your blood using this really smart three-step process. First, filtration. They just filter almost all the small stuff out of your blood. Then, reabsorption. They go back through and meticulously pull back all the good stuff your body wants to keep, like sugar and water. And finally, secretion. They actively dump any last bits of waste into what finally becomes urine.
Plants, on the other hand, are way more chill about waste removal. They release oxygen, which is their waste, but our treasure. They sweat out excess water, they can stash some waste in their cells, or even just get rid of it by dropping their leaves in the fall. No complex organs required.
And just like that, we've come full circle. You see how it all connects? Nutrition brings in the fuel. Respiration unlocks its energy. Transportation delivers that energy everywhere, and excretion cleans up the mess. These aren't just four random systems. They're one single, interconnected, continuous loop that is running every second to keep you alive.
So, let's end with this thought. Every single second of every single day, your body is conducting this entire, incredibly complex symphony of processes, and you don't even have to think about it. It just works. So what does that amazing, silent complexity tell you about the very nature of life itself?